Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Speed Street Podcast. My goodness, we have a whole list of things to talk about. I did some motor racing this weekend, a lot of motor racing. I had more canceled flights in a 2-day period than I think any human should ever really have to deal with. I think I have so much that I want to just describe about my Xfinity racing experience and my truck racing experience, and a lot that makes me emotional about, because it was an enjoyable experience for me. It was an experience that I think, a lot of IndyCar fans listen to this show, we hope. And you know what? You're going to have to listen to me maybe describing what a NASCAR event is like. Because I think it's cool. I think it's fun to be able to use some comparisons. I think it's going to be fun to be able to present because again, I'm very honest about this. So I'm going to tell you everything about what it felt like, the differences, between racing an IndyCar at Indy and a NASCAR Xfinity Series car at Indy. There's just a lot, and I honestly, it makes me excited to talk about. So. But first, let's get into IndyCar land first. This is an IndyCar podcast, everyone. I know I did some NASCAR racing over the weekend, but this is an IndyCar show, and we love IndyCar racing. And the IndyCar race was solely on Peacock, which is a tough one. That probably means a lot of people did not watch, which that's a shame. But we do respect the Peacock crowd. I watched on Peacock myself. I was able to take the race in. But yeah, just. A lot to talk about, Chase. There was one of the biggest crashes that I think I've ever seen in IndyCar, in the IndyCar series. We had an Andretti dominance, which I think we all expected to maybe happen a little bit earlier in the year, but it finally happened. Colton Herta, Kyle Kirkwood, just dominant. Santino Ferrucci's two favorite drivers finished 1-2. That's a big day for him. Glad Santino's okay though. Hey, we want, no matter, more than anything, we love the beef in between everyone, but no matter what, the aero screen saved Santino, and we respect that. As anyone should. It doesn't matter if you don't like the driver, you got to be happy that they're okay, because we don't want anyone to get hurt. Doesn't matter if you're not a fan of the person, we don't want anyone to get hurt. Imagine that in the world. We respect people's lives and safety. So hey, we should probably do that more often.
It's a good thing.
Chase, what do you think of it? Big weekend for motor racing in general. A lot going on at Indy, a lot going on in Toronto.
We got a lot to unpack, that's for sure. But I do just want to say, with Santino, we did learn one thing about him this weekend, and that he has probably one of the wildest senses of humor of all time. His video of his onboard. I wanted to see the onboard the
crazy
whole time.
Onboard shot, yeah.
and he pairs it on Instagram with Lenny Kravitz. I want to get away. I want to fly away. And at that moment, that's when I was like, I kind of like this guy. I'm kind of here for this guy. That in order to be able to do that for yourself, after probably one of the scariest crashes, you got to just. All right. Like that's the mindset. AJ Foyt, though, two races in a row now, taking flight.
Oh man. Yeah. Two flips
crazy.
in a row. Tough deal.
But it was definitely, I think that Pato had the scariest onboard shot of all. And we'll get to talking about that too. But yeah, man, I hate that I was not able to get up to Indianapolis this past week. I watched your race on live scoring from a seat in a movie theater watching Twisters.
Twisters. How was it?
Twisters.
Good movie, solid.
Kind of a good film. I'm not gonna lie.
Right.
I went in not expecting it to be that great. I thought it was going to be like one of these cookie cutter scripted movies, and it was not. It was
nice.
It was pretty good. So
they
did Melissa Etheridge right from the first Twisters. Right. So shout out to her. And then Sunday, watched IndyCar. We streamed. We did a little live streaming for the IndyCar race.
I respect that. I'm glad you do that. Chase was live streaming on Twitch during the IndyCar race. I tuned into the chat a little bit to see what was going on, just kind of talking about IndyCar racing live. So that was cool. I'm glad you did that for the sake of the sport.
Absolutely, man. It's fun. We need more of that. Get to provide a lot of insight, get to talk to a lot of great folks, and a lot of NASCAR fans. We're watching along with some IndyCar, so especially when it's on the Peacock, and yeah, just kind of had a great day watching the races, following along with you over the weekend online was awesome to see how that shook out, man. Just amazing race on Saturday. Let's just get into the weekend, hear more about it from your side.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. The Toronto stuff is going to be maybe a little bit shorter. We're going to talk or this might be a long show. Who knows? But Colton Herta, the winner, he is with us. So thankfully we get to talk to Colton Herta. Honestly, great conversation with him. Love talking with Colton. A lot of just good information there. I think you guys will enjoy that. And then I got a lot to talk about from my week too that I think is kind of a funny story to tell. So let's go through the results of the Toronto race. The Honda Indy Grand Prix Toronto. Colton Herta is the winner. Obviously, Kyle Kirkwood second, Scott Dixon third. Scott Dixon again passed the. I think he was either the hard charger, him or his teammate Alex Palou, because Alex Palou finished fourth. Penske handed them some positions because Will Power took out his teammate, and we were going to talk about that. Why? I mean, oh my gosh, hilarious!
Scotty Mac went hard. Online
great for the internet. Great for the sake of the series. Maybe that was a plant. I don't know, but it was a good idea. So Scott Dixon, again, played the strategy card perfectly, made up a ton of positions, made some passes when he needed to. Scott Dixon did the most Scott Dixon-y thing of all time, came from the back, ended up on the podium. And it's just, he has so many trophies for that reason. Alex Palou, fourth, he was laughing his way to the front the whole time because of all the craziness. Marcus Armstrong, fifth, so great day for Ganassi. David Maluka, sixth, really proud of him. That was a great result for David finally. He's been right on the verge of kind of being right there. So that was really cool. Christian Lundgaard, seventh, the winner from last year. Rinus VeeKay, eighth. Started at the back, didn't really do anything all day, but everyone crashed. So when you stay on track, you have a good day. Rinus still in the top 10, so that's good for him. Again, a lot of these results are a bit clouded because there were 12 cars that finished on the lead lap. So that's not really normal for an IndyCar race. But Romain Grosjean finished ninth. And again, look, I know people laughed at me for my podium prediction, and I had Grosjean on the podium. When he made it to the Fast Six, I bet you guys who were making fun of me were thinking, oh, maybe we got something here. I had Grosjean on the podium, and it was almost there, but they had a long pit stop at one point in the race. I guess I talked to Ricardo Juncos yesterday for a little bit, and he said that, man, they just missed it in the pits a little bit. So still great top 10 for that team, though. Graham Rahal 10th after switching steering wheels in the middle of the race. We can talk a little bit about that briefly. Each team has a spare steering wheel, and you can. I've never seen one switch that quickly. That was really impressive. But they must have had some electrical issues. So even still after that, Graham Rahal was able to have a pretty good day, which is cool. So Joseph Newgarden 11th after a puncture, after hitting some people, some wild stuff happened with Joseph. Yeah, he was in a battle. And Will Power, his teammate, oh dear, Will Power fender blasted Scott McLaughlin, gave him the old I'm going to put you in the wall move. Yikes, that was tough. We're going to talk about that. Linus Lundqvist, 13th. He was in the wall a couple times, couple different incidents. Teddy Chairs, surprise, Theo Pourchaire was racing for Alexander Rossi because Alexander Rossi has a broken thumb. He has had surgery. Crazy to think that yet again we have another driver replacement for, sadly, an injury for Alex Rossi. We will talk about that and what that might look like for the rest of the season. Theo Pourchaire finishing 14th, again, a lap down. He was caught in a couple different activities. Toby Sowery, 15th. Again, solid for him. I think he had a spin, had something going on. He hit the wall in the warm-up, I think, too. But again, top 15 for that team is really, really important. Scott McLaughlin, 16th, after being absolutely fenced by his teammate. Pato O'Ward, 17th, big accident. Marcus Ericsson, big accident. Pietro Fittipaldi, also in the accident. Santino Ferrucci, upside down, crazy. Glad he's all right. Nolan Siegel, accident. Kiffin Simpson in the wall by himself. Felix Rosenquist, Hunter McElroy, his first IndyCar race, 24th. Sadly, he had a failure, I believe, mechanical failure. Sad to see for the 18 car. That car really needs points. Stingray Robb, seemed to just break down. So his circulation efforts were cut short. I saw his parents at the grocery store yesterday. I think it was his parents.
Preparing?
I'm not sure, but I'm sure they're probably not the biggest fan of me, but his dad did say hello. So hello to Stingray's parents. Again, shout out. Nice people, but great. They're great people. No one's ever talked about them being bad people at all. Nice people. Augustine Canapino, really tough day for him. Really brutal. I mean, just literally clipped Scott Dixon and ended up in the wall. That car needs points. That car needs points desperately, so a tough one for them. And the 20 car finished last. Was involved in a first lap accident there. Hate that for Christian Rasmussen. The kid's a good driver, man. He's had a lot of just rough stuff happen to him this year. Not his fault. In wrong place, wrong time type scenario. Hate to see that for Christian. But yeah, there's the race results. So my goodness, let's talk about Alex Rossi's thumb. Goodness gracious, we had Alex Rossi, and I'm looking at this thinking, if I was in Toronto, maybe I would have got the call to get in the McLaren. I don't know. I do believe I probably would have been, if I was there, maybe easier than flying Theo from France. But realistically, I think I actually don't know if I would have received that call. I did text TK and say, hey, like the one time I'm not there, and I won't share his response because we're friends. But you know, I think McLaren probably still would have flown Teddy over from France. I think we can always, hypothetically, we can look at 100 different scenarios. Maybe I could have got in that car. Maybe not. I don't know.
That's what I want to know. Would you have done it? Would you have done it if you got the call with the weekend you had?
No, absolutely not. No, because it would have been impossible for me to do that. So, right. I mean, I was only saying if I was there. If I was there, for sure, I would have been happy to help. I subbed there before. But man, I hate that for Alex. Like Alex he's been working so hard. His seat has been, he's obviously going elsewhere next year. But he's worked with that group and tried to get them to the front and been busting his buddies, and he's solid in the points. He's still even in the top 10 in points after missing a race. And so, he's had a great year, and honestly, he's one of my good friends. So glad to hear that he had a successful surgery. I don't think Alex is going to miss any races. I don't believe he's going to miss anything other than Toronto, because we've got the Olympic break now. So we've got a couple weeks off, several weeks to recover. I mean, I've seen people with plates in their shoulders race the next weekend. So I think Alex is going to be fine. I don't believe, unless it's like a David Maluka situation where we don't know and something doesn't progress right. I don't believe Alex will miss any races. I don't think so. And
that'd be pretty crazy if that did happen.
Nor do I think he will allow himself to miss any races, because Alex is a tough son of a gun. So
he doesn't
that'll
want to
be interesting.
Chair, huh?
Yeah. So that was crazy to see initially. But yeah, the race was, I mean, right out the gate, starting with a couple cars in the wall. That's always Toronto. Toronto Turn 1 it's a brutal one.
It's tight.
Real tight. But the Andretti cars were so fast. Like you had Colton and Kyle just ripping all day long. And the strategy sort of started to come into play. People tried to short pit. Tire wear seemed to be a bit in question. And you could tell, it was a better race than Mid-Ohio, I thought, because I did see some overtaking. And what I enjoyed most was the fact that I saw people just going absolutely bonkers into the brake zone at the end of the back straight. So much so to where there were drivers that never made the corner. Like you saw Felix Rosenqvist, Marcus Ericsson, I think, threw a very late move on Felix, and Felix had to lock all fours and go into the runoff. Didn't like to see that move from Marcus. I was a bit of a rough one there. But you had guys like Theo Porcher and Linus Lundqvist. It's a question of who's going to break the latest. You try to think, I'm not going to break earlier than this guy. And it ended up being two dudes just flying into the wall. Like it was we both made it just dog fights. Yeah, that's what it was.
That's what I love most about it. It started early.
Yeah. A lot of late moves into the corner after the back straight too. That little quick left where Will Power took out Scott McLaughlin. I mean, goodness gracious. The fact that Will Power, who we had recently on this show, and Scott McLaughlin, who we also had on the last episode
same
of this
guys,
show.
same time.
Same guys. And Will Power straight up fenced his teammate. Love this for our sport. I honestly love it.
Raises serious questions, right? Like that's where I'm at with it. I want to know.
But we also call out stupidity from anyone, remember? It doesn't matter if it's Santino or Will Power. Not a smart move from Will Power. We're going to say it right there. Not smart. On your teammate, of all people. Oh,
we
gave Alex Palou all the free points. All the free points.
We saw, didn't he also, I think there was a race recently where something like that happened between Will and Scott. Like, and that's what I'm wondering. Like, they kind of got close to each other, and it was like, why are these two teammates doing this to each other? Like, what's happening right now? Because they seem like just two dudes, like they're both really chill guys. So that's why it's just like, I guess you put the helmet on and different person kicks in. I don't know. It's like, doesn't matter if you're on the same team when it comes down to those final laps, though, at the end of the day in racing. So,
yeah, I mean, it was, I guess it's one of those things that, again, when I've been forced to be outside of the seat now, I see so many more of these absolute elite professionals make mistakes, because it can happen. It doesn't matter if you're in Formula One. It doesn't matter if you're in IndyCar. I mean, in the Formula One race, we saw all kinds of McLaren strategy issues. You saw Max Verstappen hitting Lewis Hamilton. I mean, these are the elite professionals that we see every weekend, and the same with Will Power and Scott McLaughlin. You know, mistakes can happen. Will Power made a mistake because you got to go for it, dude. Something like if he didn't, he probably would have been mad at himself, like, I didn't do it. But that's also silly. Like, it was a silly place to do it. That's a difficult place to make a pass. That surface there in that corner specifically is very slick. And knowing from my past experience there, the backup in that corner is quite a lot. So because it's such a slow corner, when you're in a train of cars like they were, it is very tempting to go to the inside because the train stacks up. So when the train stacks up, you're like, I can do it. But it's such a short amount of time and such a short space that unless you really stick it, you take the guy out. You wreck the guy.
We've seen it before. 110% committed to that.
We've seen it before. And my goodness, you know, even like Joseph came out of that corner with a puncture too. So there was so much about this race that you're just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And the fact that Scott McLaughlin too gets out of the car and is about ready to throw either double birds or something, I couldn't wait. And that's the emotion that we need in this sport. Like if Scott had just walked away, if Scott had just walked away and was like, oh yeah, you know, that sucks. Like, his interview was very, very, very politically correct. Everything was very good there. Like, that was great. But like, the fact that he got out there, I was like, is he going to throw something? Is he going to throw hands? Like, what's going to happen? It's exactly what we need more of. So kudos to Scott McLaughlin for getting out there, giving him the round of applause, creating some good memes. He memed himself to death.
He made his own memes. That's
made his own memes. Yeah, like, which is a great meme. Yep. I love He was the meme god that night. Meme god, Scott McLaughlin. That
with
was
Joseph too. I was going to say,
did you like that though, Chase? Like, surely you got to think when you're seeing that, you're like, let's throw something, let's do something. Like, let's see some emotion.
So I'm gonna start making some videos. I'm going back actually through the Twitch stream when we were live and we were watching it, and I'm gonna go and get my exact thing from that moment of what was said and what I was doing, because there's so much that happens during a race. Like, I don't remember every single thing like from the spot, because it's just that emotion, that adrenaline's pumping. But yeah, anytime you see a guy that's getting out of his car, I immediately go back to Tony Stewart, right? I think about Tony.
Yes.
I was a big Tony Stewart fan my whole life. You know, I had to be one secretly. My dad was Dale Jr. fan. I was Tony Stewart all the way. And so it's like, he always had such aggression. He'd get out, sling a helmet. He would, you know, I'm going to bust his ass. Like, he did all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm seeing Scott on a split screen. They're just showing Will just driving along, and he's just there by a fence.
The Scott cam.
Just posted. And I'm like, all right, we're on watch. But you know, and the reality of it is like, you know, he did what he did. I didn't think that he was going to go too crazy because it is his teammate.
Of course,
and plus, you're also still looking at, you know, look at what Penske has been this year, and look at what they've had to like overcome from all the accusations with them at St. Pete earlier in the year, and who I kind of really just there was a moment where I felt bad kind of for Joseph in a way, because it's like he's back here. He's the only Penske guy really that's on the track that's able to do something, because I think that he's like, we have to get points. Like, I have to make sure we get points. He's thinking about the team, and he's bum rushing through the field like a madman towards the end of the race.
He was trying to. Yeah, it didn't work, but he definitely tried. Yeah, and it's been such a roller coaster for Penske this year. Like,
it has
either the highest of highs or the lowest of lows, and you see situations. It was a very un-Penske like weekend, honestly. Like, it was very like, you had Joseph hitting stuff, you had teammates hitting each other, you had Scott in the wall, and like just a. But I mean, that's awesome. Like that is it like for the Penske haters, which there are plenty of. I mean, celebratory weekend, but we need that. Like, we need the ebbs and flows of that for the sport. And I do believe that it was a great weekend for just craziness, for things that we could talk about.
Toronto stood up. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, the race might not have, I thought it was a good race. I thought it was fun to watch. I enjoyed the last few lap battle.
Yeah.
I would say, let's talk a little bit about the crazy accident. That was not great. A bit of a mistake from Pato. Again, that was a pure mistake. Like we can, he said it himself, rear lock. The rear brakes can lock into turn one. And now I obviously don't know what the cars are like to drive on the street course. But if you listen to his interview, remember, he said on this show that it is a difficult car because you're fighting multiple balances with the regen, with the way the car brakes, with the balance the way the car is now. So again, drivers will get used to this stuff, but it was the first street race with the hybrid. So again, there's a lot of new things to learn, and it can take advantage of the best drivers on the grid. I think Pato is one of our best drivers for sure on the grid, and it can happen. And as a driver, I've been in a scenario where you spin and you know that there are cars coming. It's the most helpless feeling ever. It is something where you're just like, because you see these missiles essentially coming at you, and you're just hoping that you don't get hit. And I mean, sadly, he got absolutely clobbered. There's a lot of talk about the yellow flags. I believe in a 4-second span. I mean, think of how fast 4 seconds is, 5 seconds, whatever it was, until they threw the yellow.
Yeah.
I believe, again, I'm not here to throw blame at anyone at race control, because, again, I think if they saw it like that, they should have immediately gone yellow. But my gosh, it still takes the drivers some time, and it's a restart. We're thinking, how am I going to bomb the car in front of me to get inside? How am I going to time the exit? Because you know what the most important corner is on the restarts? The exit of that corner where Pato crashed. So you're trying to set up, get an incredible run out to make a move on the car in front of you. So it's just, in racing, you will always have worst case scenarios. That was a worst case scenario. You had a car in the wall. Marcus avoided him, went into the wall. You had another car, barely missed him. Then you had Pietro up over the top. And less than a second later, you had Pato flying, or you had Santino flying through the air. So that was a worst case scenario. I believe that maybe, yes, there are a couple seconds where, hey, race control, boom, we're going to go yellow. Maybe that was the case. But it's still up to the drivers even then to understand that they see the yellow. Yes, we have flashing lights inside the car. Maybe that's it. But as drivers, that's a blind corner. We can't see. We can't see what's around the other side. Spotters, everything. Like, so there's so much that if you're looking for someone to blame, I'm sorry, but it's really hard to just lay blame on anyone, because in racing is hard. We've said this multiple times. Racing is hard. It's hard to do everything right. It's hard to figure it out. I'm glad everyone's okay though. Like, honestly, very scary wreck for Santino, because like, let's say we don't have the aero screen. He flips upside down. His whole head area went into the back of Pietro Fittipaldi's car. So very happy that I'm not a fan of the aero screen, but obviously the safety is pretty much unmatched now. It's even though I personally am just not a fan of it, I believe that the technology that we've had still would protect the drivers. But again, let's give credit where credit's due. Probably saved a lot of people, and I am fully. I don't even think about the fact that I don't like the aero screen anymore, because it's here and it's fine. So happy that we have it. Happy that we protected all of the drivers there, and happy that everyone's wrists and thumbs were okay, because even Nolan Siegel hit the wall really hard after kind of bouncing off and hitting the inside wall. But yeah, crazy accident, crazy to see for Santino. Glad he's all right. What a wild one. I mean, that must have been crazy to watch for you as well on the stream.
Well, I think kind of going into what you were talking about, like with the timing with race control. Because when I was watching it, you see Pato lose it, and he sits there. You've got about, like you said, about a solid 3-4 seconds. The next thing you know, you just see all these cars coming around, and I knew that once we saw the Pato on board, that was going to easily be the most terrifying shot, because you're there, you're locked up in the car, you can't do anything, and you have to sit there and watch these missiles coming at you.
Dude, it's crazy.
It's like I said, you could pay me to ride that ride at Universal Studios, like if it was there. So it's
a tough one.
It was wild for sure. And I mean, I think that what is more wild is just the natural way that a crash can happen in IndyCar, right? Like, so obviously we're thankful for the safety, but from someone watching it from that point, I would just not have thought and there was a world where you could ramp a car.
Yeah.
I didn't think that. And then when you look at the wing, because I'm thinking that wing will probably break, I'm thinking it's got to be really lightweight, but obviously it's made very well. So
yes.
for that, I don't know who the first one was. Was it Kiffin that went up first?
No, it was Pietro. Pietro went up. Yeah.
Okay, so Pietro goes, and then that's when Santino followed right behind him. They're probably thinking everything's fine. There's nothing around this corner. And then all of a sudden,
happens fast.
Split second, dude. So, like I just want to know, I want to see the data for heartbeat in that moment. I want to see Pato's heartbeat. I want to see Santino's heartbeat. I don't know if that's something they have on the cars, but that would be a metric that I would want to look at, because, man, I could not imagine. I just know from watching it, I was just waiting to hear that he was okay, Santino.
Yeah. Glad to see everyone was all right, for sure. It was it was a crazy one. At the end of the day, there will be more that we can talk about this race and kind of a few other things next week. Because, again, next week we have some time off now. So we'll have a couple weeks of this show where we can talk more in depth about some small things here and there. And oddly enough, I have reached out to Teddy Chairs, Theo Porcher, about being on this show. This is before this all happened. Like, literally last week, I asked him, I was like, hey, man, it'd be kind of cool to just get a chat with you on the show. And then this weekend happens. So I'm hoping next Tuesday right now, I think we're going to have Teddy Chairs on the show. I think that would be really cool to get his perspective on what he went through travel-wise. But yeah, so that kind of wraps up our Toronto thing. We'll have Colton a little bit later. I'm gonna get into my story about my whole race week, because this is my show, and this is what we can talk about, and I'd like to let you folks in on it, and I appreciate you for listening. So Colton Herta will be coming up after I go into everything that we talk about. So let's get into it, Chase. Wild week of motorsports. So for those that maybe don't follow me or somehow tripped over this show on the YouTube stratosphere, or maybe this is your first time listening. So last week, for me, we got out of the IndyCar at Iowa, like, oh boy, here we go. That was kind of crazy. And right into some travel delays. So let me tell you a little bit about me trying to get to Charlotte last week. I had a day on the Toyota simulator. So Toyota was kind enough to let me on their simulator to get ready for the NASCAR Xfinity race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I had scheduled I was in the BMW GT3 car at an SRO test day in VIR on the Thursday. And was supposed to get back to Indy Thursday night to meet up with my girlfriend. We were landing at the same time at the Indianapolis airport. It was going to be great. Get ready for Friday, the truck race. But it starts off a bit chaotic. So I go to the airport on a Tuesday evening. It was right after we recorded our show, actually, our last week's show. I show up to the airport. Who's there? Kyle Kirkwood's there. Oh, we're going to have a nice time. Kyle Kirkwood's there. We're having a nice chat about Iowa, having a wonderful discussion. We sit down, have a little bit of dinner. Oh, flight's delayed. Okay, flight's delayed. All right, we're flying American. We can only really fly American to Charlotte because there's 10 flights a day from Indy to Charlotte and vice versa. And obviously Charlotte Airport right now, Scott McLaughlin tweeted about it not too long ago, potentially the worst airport on the face of the planet right now.
It's been that way. It's been that way.
Been that way a long time.
Many years.
Potentially the worst airport in the history of air travel.
Yeah.
So we're sitting at the airport Tuesday night. I'm on the sim at 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Supposed to be on the sim 7 a.m. Flight's getting delayed. It's canceled. Okay, well, that sucks. Now I'm disappointed because the week is now off. Now I have to Now my sleep schedule is like I get home from the Indy airport at like 10:30, 11 o'clock. I got to wake up at 4 for a 6 a.m. flight to Charlotte. So now we're like, oh, great. Here we go. It's already going to be a crazy busy week. Finally get to Charlotte. I only get an hour and a half on the sim instead of a full morning. So we're a little bit behind, and I'm like, oh, great. Like, please let everything else be fine. Had a nice time though in Charlotte, did our thing. Go back to the airport, Thursday night. I drive to VIR, do my thing out in VIR with the Random Vandals racing team, do some BMW GT3 testing, which I can talk about at a later date. Really cool car, honestly. The BMW GT3 car, I had a great time driving that. Like, it's kind of crazy to get into a sports car. I haven't driven a sports car in a long time. You got ABS in there, traction control, air conditioning, all kinds of stuff. I hadn't driven at VIR since I think I was 17, but really enjoyed that. I'm in that car with Connor DeFilippi and Kenton Cook. So got some laps in. All right, time to go to the Charlotte airport. I get to the Charlotte airport. My flight's 9 p.m. Supposed to be 9 p.m. Direct to Indy. I'm already on the way to the airport. It's delayed. And just knowing and feeling how this week has gone already, I'm like, there's no way I'm getting out of here. Absolutely no way. No shot. And I thankfully, I'm like Platinum Pro on American, so I'm thinking that maybe they'll help me out. Maybe there's a little bit of, because I fly American a lot, like I'll get, we'll get some things taken care of. So I call the team. I call Sam Hunt. I'm like, hey, like worst case scenario, is there like a flight Friday morning? Like we're talking now day of my truck race, day of the Xfinity practice, like my first ever oval Xfinity practice, first ever Xfinity oval race. And he's like, yeah, no, thankfully, I think we do have a seat on the team plane. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try to ride this flight out because I want to get home. And like my girlfriend's also flying in. And so like, we're supposed to land at the same time. I haven't seen my girlfriend in a while. I'd like to see Amy. And, I'm sitting at the airport. It's getting delayed. The airport's like literally a war zone. I feel like I'm in some sort of like movie scene where there's a million people there and there's like, it's starting to get hot, not a lot of air conditioning. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Get delayed. The flight says it's going to take off at like 12:30 in the morning. I get home at like 2. Amy's flight's also delayed on the way from LA. Like she's supposed to get in at 2 a.m. Like my mom is now potentially picking her up at 2 a.m. It's just chaos. Flights canceled.
Airplanes aren't working.
Airplanes aren't working. I don't know why it was canceled. It must have been a crew hours thing. Anyway, I should never tweet about airlines. I know it's hard to fly planes. I know it's difficult to run an airline. It's not. It just wasn't meant for me. So I then have to go and try to get an Uber out of the Charlotte airport, which again, so are 40,000 other people. And so it's an absolute war zone out there. Most expensive Uber I think I've ever got.
4-hour Uber?
Tried to get to Sam Hunt, my team owner, not the country music artist. Thankfully, he let me sleep at his house. He wasn't even there. His wife was there. Thankfully, they let me sleep at their house. But it took me 25 minutes to get to Uber, 45 minutes to get to Mooresville, North Carolina.
Man.
And goodness gracious, did I want to just go to sleep there. It's like midnight, 12:30. Got to wake up at the crack of dawn again, 6 a.m. I know I've got Xfinity practice in front of me, truck practice, truck qualifying, truck race, crazy Friday in front of me. But boy, did we finally make it to Indy, and got to Indy. Then got Marty Smith from ESPN, from NBC. Marty Smith. Thankfully, Marty Smith gave me a ride from the private terminal to the regular Indy terminal so I can get my car. So shout out NBC, Marty Smith. Very kind of him to do that. I rush home. I'm like, I got to go get my suits. My other suits are in my house. Try to get the suits. Here we go. All right, I got my truck suit. Do I have enough fireproof underwear? Do I have all the shoes? Like I had laid everything out, but I'd expected it to be like the night before so I could get there and just have a slow perusal of everything. And maybe, oh yeah, it's going to be fine. But here we go. I'm like, whatever. I'll just grab all this stuff and I'll just drive to the track. So man, finally got to the track. And I'm like, okay, at least I know I can be here for a couple hours. I know I've got Xfinity practice in front of me. And, man, I with how chaotic the week was already, I was just finally happy to get in a race car at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I get out in this Xfinity car for practice, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is slow, first of all, quite slow, but kind of cool. Like there was something about practice. I was like, this is interesting. There's some driving to be done here. Like it's not easy flat. I wasn't flat really anywhere yet, like full throttle. And so I'm like, okay, feeling this out. Like I'm looking at the timesheets. I'm like, like we weren't that fast, but like I had never, to give people perspective, I had never driven a stock car, like above the truck level on an oval. Like, oh, wow. I had never qualified a stock car at an oval. I have done the Daytona 500, of course, in a cup car. That's different. And it was not the most competitive scene. So not great, but this is a very new experience for me. I had done, a mile and a half in the truck, Vegas. But this is a very, very unique experience. And so, just trying to feel it out, see what's going on. I'd run maybe a little bit in traffic, but not really a ton. But working with the team was great. Kind of working with the spotters was really cool. I could tell that they were great already. But by the end of that practice session, we were going to do a sort of a semi qualifying run, like put some tape on the car, which I found out. So for people that are listening that are IndyCar fans, like when the Xfinity cars, they go to make a qualifying run, they just put a bunch of tape over the front grille. It adds a ton of downforce, a couple 100 pounds of downforce, which is fascinating for me. I did not know that. Adds a lot of front grip. The car gets tuned a little bit differently. And so I go out there and the way they qualify, which I think is interesting. So for those that watch the Indy 500, right, we have 4 laps. We got 4 laps. The start finish line is the timing line. But for Xfinity, you go out and they actually have an alternate timeline. So the alternate timeline is in the short shoe between 3 and 4. So for us, we leave the pits fully we were like 3/4 of the way taped up, which means you can really only do 1 lap before the engine overheats. And so I'm like, all right, I got to get like a lot of time out of it here. I was like in the 20s, like pace wise. I was like, oh shoot, like I gotta try to find some time here and see what's going on. And so I'm like out of the pits. All right, cool. Here we go. Qualifying sim, past the timeline, 1 lap and it's over. And I'm like, oh shoot, all right. I thought it felt good. I thought I learned a little bit, not quite flat. And I was like, yeah, I think I probably could have got a little more out of it. They're like, oh, you're P1. I was like, what? I was like, are you serious? And then yeah, we pitted immediately. The session was over. And kind of crazy to think that. Like I was like, wow, this is like that was really cool. And I think my experience at IMS for sure helped. I do believe that. But overall, we ended up 3rd on the timesheets, and what a crazy move, huh? Like it's just practice, obviously, but it felt really good. Like, did you see that, Chase? And you were like, that's kind of crazy. Like you're a NASCAR guy, like you see what's going on. Like sometimes it's hard for the novices to get in and be quick right out the gate.
It's very hard. So I definitely attribute that to just your driving skills that you've just built up over the years, but also because of just how much experience you've had on Indianapolis Motor Speedway on that surface. I mean, even in a different car. I mean, we saw that in the Cup race a little bit with Kyle Larson there at the end of that race. I mean, I feel like that experience from the 500 this year helped him. Like, there was nobody else in my mind that was going to win that race this week, and I knew it was going to be Kyle. And it's just because you have to respect that track. You have to understand it. You have to be on it so much. And you talk about how much practice time helped compared to what they got in NASCAR. The more practice time you've had there, he got that on that track in a different vehicle. So I do feel like it being a little bit slower probably helps you navigate a little bit differently too. But just overall, I was not surprised that you were that high up on the board at all, because I knew that you had more than enough experience there. And I think if anything, what I really hope to see from it is that people will look to you, people will look to Kyle from this past weekend, and a lot of those NASCAR guys are going to be like, how do I get a little more time out there? Because it's back.
Yeah.
It's back.
Yeah.
And I hope to see more crossover there for sure.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And I mean, there's a lot that I think I did immediately. Like, I don't know if people notice in the Indy cars, but we come off the wall out of 4 and out of 2, go down the back straight, kind of in the middle of the track. But in those cars, like, they didn't really do that, and I was the only one doing that. And I think because they're so heavy, you kind of can't really, like, we come off the wall for aero purposes, and I don't really know if this is actually a real thing or not. But it just feels right in the IndyCar to come off the wall and kind of let the thing pick up momentum and then come back for one because we have enough time and our cars are so stiff and so low that we can do that. But I noticed in the Xfinity car, everyone's staying right against the wall, down the back straight and in the front straight, because you really don't want to move the car much because of how heavy it is. So that was interesting for me to kind of just stay right next to the wall and then turn it into one. That was an adjustment. But without a doubt, my experience for sure helped there. And I'll get into more of that when we talk about the race. But right after practice, it was such a strange feeling for me because like I got an interview. I'm like, oh, cool. Like we're third quickest. Hey everyone, my car is as fast as Xfinity Internet. Bing bong, Xfinity. You got to get in the shout outs. Love that Xfinity series. Here we go.
Toyota.
Honestly, Toyota, yeah, shout out. But boy, it was as fast as Xfinity Internet. I thought. I've heard that so many years too. I was like, I got to be the guy to say it. You got to say it, dude. Like I had to be the guy. I wanted to be a part of the crew. So now I feel like I'm a part of the Xfinity series crew.
You did.
And then so right after that, I'm like running back to the trailer. I don't even get to like do like a debrief with like my crew chief Chris at all. I told him, I was like, dude, that was kind of sweet. And then I left. I was like, all right, I got to go. Because I had about an hour to make it to truck practice. And truck practice was super important because I had like a truck on a short track. I was like, shoot, I got a lot to learn. And so we get a police escort. So I go to my parents' trailer in the driver owner lot right behind the garage area. And shout out to Speedway PD. They had a guy there ready to take me, a great friend of ours, great guy. And me and Amy get in the car. I take off my suit. I'm still like sweating. I'm drenched in sweat. I gotta rehydrate. And boom, we get a police escort from IMS to IRP. Incredible people to help us make this happen. Honestly, both teams, Nice Motorsports and Sam Hunt Racing, the Trisha and Leighton who were working on that team, they were so good at kind of helping me coordinate all this stuff. The folks at IRP were awesome and letting me come in a different gate around the back. But we got there in like 5 minutes. It was awesome. The police escort, I felt like I was in an episode of Cops. It was all like Amy was having a great time. We were like in a high-speed chase, but like on the good side of the high-speed chase. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Felt like live PD. And we got there, and I'm like freaking out because like the trucks are parked outside of the track. It's a bit more of a, the short track vibe. It's like, all right, cool. Where do I change in the truck? And then all the stuff's inside the track.
Bathroom under the bleachers.
Yeah, bathroom under the bleachers type thing. But man, let's get into the truck racing. So pretty cool experience to get in at the short track IRP. So I had won at IRP in 2010 in the Pro Mazda series. So it had been a very long time, 14 years exactly since I had won there, which makes me feel extra old because I graduated high school like 2 days before I won at IRP. And
18-year-old boys, man.
Just an 18-year-old young fella, just living his life. I don't even think I was 18 yet. I was 17. I graduated high school maybe a little bit early. I'm not really sure. I forget. It's so long ago now.
2010 for sure. For sure. I know I was 18. So
2010, graduated high school, then won at IRP. But my gosh, that was a much tougher learning experience for me than IMS in the Xfinity car, because I'm using the brake. Like you're trying to hustle this thing in, and IRP is such a unique track. And by the end of the night, honestly, what a fantastic racetrack! What a fun, enjoyable our truck was really good too until it broke. But it was such an enjoyable event. I think truck racing at IRP, it just felt right. It just felt cool. There was something about it. When I get in for practice, the tire goes off pretty quickly. I didn't really know what I needed, but I just kind of kept getting experience. We only get one set of tires. It's 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. We make a couple adjustments. I try to figure some things out. And again, that 15, 20 minutes of practice goes by so fast. It's crazy how fast it goes by. But my gosh, I was like, dude, this is going to be fun. This is going to be sick. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go qualify. Our truck was supposed to roll out first to qualify. We have a leak in the rear of the car. There's a rear seal of some kind. There was a leak. Right. And honestly, I was like, oh no, not now. Like I need to get this extra new tire run in. Like I needed to get more experience. And I thought track position would have been very important for a short track, but I did not get to qualify. So I had to start last, which was a real shame. There are 35 trucks. So thankfully, like we made the race. There was no problem with like, there wasn't any worry that we were going to go home. Thank God, or else that would have been terrible.
Yeah.
But man, let's talk about, let's just get right into the race. I want to make sure this show doesn't drag too long, but, knowing what I knew about the track, knowing what I knew about the truck, I had never used like the brakes like I used in the truck on an oval, right? You're trying to use the brakes, understand how much the car can roll in, and then how patient you have to be. Like a lot of patience, I think, on with these trucks on the short tracks. It's so easy to overdrive. So going into the race, I'm thinking, I'm thinking so much, but I can only go forward, right? We can only go forward. It's a night race. I was so pumped. I had Stevie Reeves as my spotter, who is Christopher Bell's spotter in the Cup Series. And he's a race car driver himself. And man, as soon as I got into that truck and I started to hear Stevie Reeves talk to me about like what to do, experience, like kind of knowing where to go, I was so happy. I was like, I got this guy. Like I even have in my notes here for the podcast just to talk about the spotters. And I've had some great spotters in IndyCar, but there's just something about, I think, the NASCAR spotters, like the Cup Series level spotters, that are just so impressive.
It's like so an impressive. Art almost.
Like, it is an art. Like you listen to them, right? And you're like, man, these guys, like, they can paint a picture. They're like artists with their words, and they make you, like, I think there's a confidence level that they can generate as well. Do you think that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've had the pleasure of talking to a couple of guys in the past, just being in NASCAR garages, and I mean, it's just because they live, eat, and breathe the racing and understanding the strategy. You have to have that passion with it. And I think that passion is the true fuel that provides that confidence, that provides just the endless quest for knowledge, I guess, in racing, of how to communicate that to multiple people, because you got different drivers you're working with. And in your situation, you don't have a lot of time to really get to know that driver, how to communicate well to that driver.
Yeah.
So for them to be able to adapt so quickly on the fly, they honestly deserve way more credit than they get. So
it's incredible. Yeah. Cause Stevie has not worked with me before. Like he doesn't really, he probably, I've met him before. I know him, but like, I don't think he's probably watched me much as a driver, right, in the past. I don't know that. But he's immediately trying to be like, hey,
if he knew ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe, but like, I'm obviously new to the truck series. Like, I've never done a short track and a stock car. So he's probably like, this guy's a novice, bit of a gypsy. But who knows? I don't know. Maybe just a bit of a new person, right? But I'm going into this race. I'm like, all right, here we go. Right at the start, I'm like, I got to get up top. I got to start passing people. I don't want to get lapped. And I was having a great time. Like, we were starting to pass trucks, and I'm like, okay, I'm learning. I'm understanding. I'm starting to use the higher lane. Then I'm going to the bottom, and we're making up time. And it was fascinating because this truck race, of course, no crashes, none. Like, no crashes at all. Everyone was racing pretty well. I started to learn. I was getting up there, got up next to Marco Andretti too. Like, man, the funniest part about this race is I spent a ton of time around Marco, trying to work past him a couple times. He was faster at the end and then our car was broken, but ran with him at the end too. And that was a lot of fun to see him out there. But man, I was making some progress here. And then after the first stage, we pitted. And we got our lap. Well, we had to get our lap back. So we finally got back onto the lead lap, because we lost a lap on the first stage. Because obviously we start far back. There were a lot of cars that were a lap down. But with the way the wave around rule worked, we were able to stay out there and kind of get our lap back. And that's when it started going like really well. Like at the start of the stage, like second stage, we had started making like a lot of moves, like getting towards the top 15, like, and Stevie, I could tell, my spotter, he was like, he could understand, like, I could run anywhere on the track. Like, I could run low. I had passed cars low. I had passed cars up top. And I was having a fantastic time. Like, we were running, he was like, dude, you just passed Ben Rhodes, 2-time champion of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. I was like, Sweet. I was like, that's good. Right? I feel like that's good. Hear. Past Johnny Sauter. Johnny Sauter won a lot of races. Like passing these guys, I'm like, okay, cool. I feel good. And man, I like the restart of the second stage, I followed my teammate Bailey Curry, and we ripped the top for like 2 or 3 laps in a row. We were definitely up to like 14th, 15th, 16th-ish, and just going. And I was feeling fantastic. Like the truck was great. Nice gave me a great truck. Everything was going the right way. And then the right front starts going down. All of a sudden, I'm getting like real tight. Something's happening in the right front. Something is going away in a massive sense, and the right front tire was flat. So realistically, our race was done from there on, sadly. It had broken a couple of the joints in the right front, dragged the splitter, and it was a shame because like what I had felt right then, I was like, dude, I think we can get in the top 10. And if not top 10, for sure, top 15, just ripping, running the top, running the bottom, but just still did the rest of the laps, learned a lot, and still no crashes. Kind of crazy to see, like literally no attrition at all. So again, not a good finish for us. Obviously, we finished a couple laps down, probably 29th or something like that. But it didn't matter to me. I think hearing my spotter Stevie Reeves say what he said on the radio was super cool, and he super encouraging. I think the team could tell that like I was getting after it. Like really, really enjoyed the racing that I was doing. And man, like did you get to watch the truck race on Friday night?
I got to listen to it on the radio.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
This weekend, I had a big radio race weekend, big telemetry watching, race listening. So but definitely it was a cool race.
It seemed like there was a lot of side by side racing. Again, my overall impression is like IRP in a truck. The track was so wide, like you could run the bottom, you could run the top. It was such an enjoyable experience, and I learned so much. So again, sadly, with my luck recently, our results do not show the pace that we had. I think for those that know, for those that watched, we were on our way to a very good evening, and the truck was fantastic. And I appreciate what Nice did. Everyone, my crew chief Cody Efall, like all the guys there were doing a great job. They got me up to speed.
That's what I was going to say. We had a ton of people that were tweeting at me and that were just like, that Goddard's he's killing it. He's cutting up through the field, bro. I'm watching it. I'm just like, yeah, like let's go. Like I'm in the middle of a bunch of people. I've found myself doing that more and more on the weekends that I'm here. I'm like usually at like a lot of different events, and people like will just stare at me and look at me. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, race is on.
Motor racing.
On. Yeah,
motorsport.
Race time.
So big shout out to Power Plus. They were our partner. First time on a truck for them. Really cool to have them on board with us. And man, it was one of those things that I'm excited that I have at least 2 more, right? Like I got Kansas and Homestead still on the schedule. Don't have to hang up the truck hat just yet. Really, really cool to be a part of that team and just to get some experience, man. If there's one race, like if I don't get to do a full season or anything next year, the one truck race I want to do is IRP for sure. Like that was super fun.
That's it, dude.
So yeah, so that caps off a Friday that was just like insane. Like started super early, didn't even start in the state of Indiana, finished late at night. Like I'm trying to get home, got traffic, trying to eat food. I'm trying to stay hydrated. But yeah, we eventually got home, probably went to sleep around, 1 a.m. after getting things sorted out. So still another late night, but it was time to go Xfinity racing, baby. Like we're like, hey, it's time to show up on Saturday at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to represent for Polka Dot once again in the NASCAR Xfinity Series.
That car was so sexy, by the way.
Oh, man, such a great looking car.
Cars.
Yeah, such a good looking car. And yeah, so eventually get to the track. I'm like, okay, finally I don't have to leave this track once I'm here. And what a cool, the weather was great. Everything just felt good about the weekend. And it was time to qualify. So the funny thing is it was my first ever qualifying session on an oval, in a stock car.
Entirely.
Because think about this. So when I did the oval races at Las Vegas in the Truck Series, it was like in the COVID era, so there was no qualifying. We just showed up and we raced, and that was just kind of how it was. Daytona 500. You think, oh, you probably got to do a qualifying run there. Nope. the oil line had a hole in it, so we didn't even get to do a qualifying run. We had to go straight to the duel.
That's right, dude.
Yeah, so no qualifying runs ever in a stock car. And I had never driven the Xfinity car on an oval. So it was all new. So I'm like, oh, shoot, like, here we go. We got the lineup. Like, it's one lap, like literally out of the pits, one lap. That's it. And I'm like, I'm trying to, my crew chief's telling me all that he can about like what type of information I need to know. I got to be, you got to take advantage of every bit of, it's fully taped up. The car is going to be as fast as it's going to be. And for me, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm about to expect. But honestly, it was super fun. I think I left maybe just a hair on the table because I still didn't know the amount that the car can slip, right? So when you get to the center of the corner at IMS, these cars obviously have nowhere near as much downforce as the Indy cars.
Right.
And when you're trying to drive in flat, this is sort of like an Indy 500 situation. Indy 500, you got to be flat no matter what. And if you lift a little bit, that's not bad. But like in these things, we were almost like on the verge of being flat. And I could tell a couple cars, we were about 14th in line to go qualify. And there were probably a couple cars that tried to be flat and almost hit the wall. Parker Clearman did hit the wall. He tried to be flat, full throttle. And there's a bit of movement in this car that I think it automatically slides underneath you, I think, just because of how big and heavy it is. And I'm not really used to that. So I probably left a hair on the table. But again, 14 our cars had qualified, and I was third at the time. And I was like, oh, sweet. And honestly, to qualify 16th for this event, I was really proud of that because I had never done that before. The car was fast. The team gave me a great car. And we were starting 16th out of 38 cars or something for the, for the Penske 250 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. All of it was very positive. And I could not wait to race. Everything about working with Sam Hunt Racing and having Polka Dot there, I think was a fantastic experience. I mean, everything had gone right. And I was like, man, this race better be sweet. Like I was hoping for it. And we're rolling up to the start. Like I'm hanging out. Like we're doing the shout out to everyone too. The driver intros was really cool. Felt a great cheer from the crowd. We got in a truck and they took us all around the lap. And shout out to everyone that was yelling Speed Street. A lot of Speed Street shout outs as we were driving around the track. I was with Joe Graff Jr., who I had not met before. Nice guy. He was with me in the truck. We were talking about the track and the race there. But shout out to everyone who was shouting at me because I could hear you guys. I heard everyone that was shouting about Speed Street. So respect that. Respect the street.
Love it.
And let's get into the race. I was like, here we go. I'm going Xfinity racing. I got Nick Payne in turn 1 who spots for Tyler Reddick. And I had Greg in turn 3. Why am I forgetting Greg's last name all of a sudden? This is bad. I did not forget Greg's last name. He was very, very good. Greg Stump from Off Axis Paint. Greg was my turn 3 spotter. Great
Shout
dude.
out Greg, dude.
These guys were awesome. Yeah. Incredible spotters to work with that I again will talk more about. But Nick, obviously I hear him spotting for Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick's a dog. We know that.
Right.
But I'm like, okay, cool. Here we go. Let's start this race. Let me get into the race. All right. I'm starting right behind Josh Berry. And I get to the start and I'm like, man, I started on the outside and like I'm used to Indy, the start at Indy, I'm going to the top side. I'm always going to the top side. Like this year, past 3 cars going to the top side. Every restart, you're going to the top side. That's just my experience there. But Josh Berry was like really slow on the top side. And I'm like, oh no, like our line's going to get jammed up. I'm like, oh crap. And I don't know anything about racing these cars, right? So like I'm learning what dirty air feels like. I'm like, okay, cool. This is a bit chaotic here. It's feeling a little bit different. But Josh is kind of holding our line up, and I'm like, oh, no. And so down the back straight, there's obviously, cars are flying around. I'm like, lap 1, okay, cool. I'm committed to the top. I'm like, I'm going to turn in here, and I'm going to go flat past all these guys because I know there's grip up there. I just know it. And I turn into 3, and there's a car spinning. And I am like, you have got to be kidding me. I see this car spinning. I think it was Sam Mayer, the one car, right?
Yeah.
And the one car is going backwards, and there is more smoke than I have ever seen in my entire history of racing.
That's saying a lot.
And my spotter he's like, go high. And I'm like, I don't think I can go anywhere else.
Oh,
and
man.
I'm in the wall. And there's Jeb Burton's in like sandwich with me. And like, I'm like, there's dust and grass. And I'm like, ugh. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. I was like, I am in the wall. Like, I even felt the wall. I was like, oh, like, here we go. I literally slapped the wall. And I'm like, I can't believe this. All this work, all this excitement, like my entire career, this is the only like we've spent, like the budget is spent, you know, it costs a certain amount to do this race. We don't have any more budget to spend. We have nothing left, right? Like, this is it. This is my one chance. And I'm in the wall. So I'm driving around. I get it going, and I'm like, okay, cool. Hang on. Like, the steering feels okay. Like it's not pulling one direction or the other. That's the first thing you got to know. Like, did I bend a steering arm? Did I bend something?
You want to make sure the tank holds up, you know?
Yeah, like I hope it's okay. Do we have a flat tire? I don't know. And so I'm driving around, and I'm getting like passed by other cars because like my car is smoking. Like the car was definitely smoking. So I'm like, oh no, like what's really bad here? So we pit, obviously. Like, we pit when the pits are closed. And all right, the guys are looking over it, and my crew chief says, he's like, you know what? We're gonna be all right here. Like, we're going to be all right. I'm like, okay, I believe you. I trust you. So we get 4 new tires on that sucker. I'm watching them paint like the Mona Lisa of tape jobs on the front of this thing. Like, it's looking like if old Billy Van Gogh himself was out there just putting tape on the car. That was it. I don't think Billy Van Gogh is his name, but Van Gogh is definitely an artist, right? Like, he's for sure an artist.
Yes. Doesn't have an ear.
It's his cousin, Bob. Bob Van Gogh was doing the work with the tape here. And like, we're on the clock too. Like, you know, so NASCAR has like a damage clock for those that like don't know. You could only actually fix your car, I think, for 5 minutes in the pit box before you get before they before you can't race. Yeah, the DVP clock. Yeah. Before you're literally not allowed to race anymore. Like, they won't let you. Like, they won't score you anymore. So they're taping everything up. We go out and we come back in. And we're still taping the thing, and we're making sure everything's all right. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And the guy's like, look, the tech official's like pointing at his watch, like, you guys got to get out of there. And we were like, all right, we just got to go. So we have to start, tail end of the longest line, way at the back of the field. And I'm like, I hope this car works when I go into turn 1. They're like, hey, like, let's be careful. Like, we don't really know what's like truly damaged.
Oh my God. Talk about the climb, huh?
I was like, oh boy, all right, here we go. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta get into this thing. And when I take the start, guess who's going right back to the top? Me. I'm going right back to the top. Trying to pass these guys. I get by a few people, and the car feels good. I'm like, okay, hang on. Like, I think we're all right. Like, I get through 2 corners. And I'm riding down the back straight, and I'm going around a couple cars. I pass 3 or 4 cars. And I'm like, all right, like, I think we're good. And man, that stint was actually one of the most fun stints for me because, like, had to pass a lot of cars. Yeah. And I was starting to work my way forward and starting to get up there. And we're already a set of tires behind too. Remember, so we have to use a set because we ruined that first set in the crash. I think one of them, I think the left front went down. So we're a set of tires behind. So we're going to have to stay out at some point. I know that. But, man, pretty cool experience. Like, I started to learn, okay, all right, I can get runs on these guys out of 2, out of 4. Like, we can figure it out. But we eventually, like, to not kind of go through every detail. Like, my spotters are feeding me information. I'm learning, getting past a couple of the guys that I knew at the back. And then, okay, all right, we're not quite at the fast cars yet. I was like, hey, I feel good, but we're not quite at the fast cars yet. Like, we're not quite at the big teams, all the folks with like the A engines and stuff like that, the better engines. And so we're at the end of the stage. And okay, all right, we're making some progress. I'm thinking, all right, I think the car's pretty good. I think it's not too bad. And we rotate forward because we obviously did not need to pit and take a set of tires. Like, I think the first stop was the same as everyone else, but like at some point we rotated a little bit forward with the way the strategy played out. And now I'm at the front. Like, suddenly I find myself like in the front half, and I'm like, okay, I'm passing cars again on the restart. Boom, here we go. Couple cars here and there. And so I started to learn things about air that I have never felt before in my life. So
let's go.
I'm going down the back straight, and I am feeling, I forget who it was for the first time, but a car had pulled to my left rear quarter panel, and I thought my engine had blown up or something had happened, because all of a sudden my car goes from like going to like, and I'm like, what is this? It was literally just air being put onto my rear spoiler and slowing me down. I have got to say, if you're a person that is an IndyCar fan that hates NASCAR, like, well, I'm sorry you have to think that way anyway, but it is fascinating what these guys can do with the air on the rear bumper of the car. So I'm like, okay, now I'm getting swallowed up by these guys because they know how to use the air. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know. Like, I had never experienced, like, you can talk about it, but until you actually do it, it's very hard to understand.
It's a whole
so I'm like, okay, cool.
World.
All right, I'm getting dragged back now. I'm trying to get close to them. And my spotters are like, okay, cool. You got to get to their corner now, and then now pull off them. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to do that, but also not get taken out at the same time. But once we kind of settled into the guys at the front, it was really cool. We're talking, Shane Van Gisbergen, Austin Hill, Justin Allgaier, guys that are good guys. And I'm now like running with these people, and I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to learn. And I'm pulling away from Brandon Jones, like a guy who's like, I know has won races before, and I'm pulling away from him. And I'm like, this is cool. All right. Like we're good here. And like Brandon Jones, that's Joe Gibbs Racing. Like that's the Alpha Toyotas. Like we're in the Toyota.
You can throw hands with them cars, dude.
We know they're an Alpha Toyota. Yeah. So I'm learning, and I'm starting to figure out, and I learned more than anything on that last stint, because Justin Allgaier is moving around. His car is damaged. My car is damaged. But like his car is probably a little bit draggier, but he's very experienced, so he knows what he's doing. But man, I got moved by Austin Hill too. Like by just turning into turn 2, Austin Hill's on my left rear, and he does not touch my car at all, but gets to my left rear quarter. I get huge loose. I'm sliding that sucker up, and he passes me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what happens. Like, you just got to get to these guys' left rear quarters, and you can move them out of the way. It's fascinating racing, honestly. I honestly was having so much fun. I had so much fun because the car was fast and I could pass people, but I was also like that. Like it was like I had just seen a new movie for the first time. And every scene, you're like, no way. Like, that's cool. Like, you get to the next scene in Batman Returns, or whatever it is, like The Dark Knight Rises, and you're like,
Xfinity.
Whoa, you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like Batman movies, and all of a sudden you're like, what hero is gonna? Or that scene in the Avengers Endgame where they're all coming out of the time circle, and you're like, oh, the boys are back. You know what I mean? Like everyone's coming out of the time circle.
It's like
that was a surprise for me. You know what I mean?
Like this is the extra element that no one really gets to say that they feel unless they're behind the wheel, man. So
and now I finally got to like bump draft a car for the first time, and I'm like, oh heck yeah! Like I pushed I pushed Sheldon Creed so hard down the back straight that he told me after the race that I'd lifted the rear tires off his car off the ground. And I couldn't see in front of him. So I'm at his left rear quarter, left rear corner of the rear bumper, which is not the best place to push a car, I was told. And I was like, oh boy, I'm glad I didn't do anything bad there. But dude, we were hauling the mail down the back straight, passing cars, and I was pushing him. And I got shoved so hard at one point, it caved the rear bumper of my car in, which I found out after the race. I shoved Shane Van Gisbergen past some people. I was like, this is awesome. I'm having a great time. Like, it's not
Big dog came to
fast,
play, dude.
but I was like, I'm in the fight. I feel like I'm fighting with the boys that I watch every week. Like, I love watching the NASCAR Xfinity series because there's very good drivers in this series. Very good drivers. Very good teams. And I felt like, for me, in that race, I thought I am fighting with the people that are talked about every week. I am fighting with the folks that are winning races. All of these people that were around me, Van Gisbergen, race winner. Austin Hill, multi-race winner. I'm looking at A.J. Allmendinger not too far in front of you. Justin Allgaier. All the people, Brandon Jones, race winners. These are the people that I was racing with. And I'm like, this has to count for something, right? Because I'm in a one-car team, Sam Hunt Racing, great operation, but we're only a one-car team, one-car operation. And I was told that we are not like they had not won a race before, right? So we're not in the tier 1 of equipment levels, right? But this is a very good group. And man, honestly, I got to get emotional for a little bit because I'm like, it's so hard for me as a part-timer because I want to race so bad. Like I want to win so bad in this stuff. And I want to be at the front because that's where I grew up. I grew up winning races. I love winning. Like that's what I love doing. That's what got me so addicted to this sport. And I love the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but it's so hard because I get to the end of that race and I feel like I learned so much that I could do so much better next time. I don't know if that next time is going to come. I don't know. I don't have any other races on my calendar. You know what I mean? And it's so annoying because I've seen so many situations where drivers get in and like, oh, wow, they did really well in their first try. And then suddenly, like, you see it in IndyCar all the time. Linus Lundqvist gets hired by Ganassi. All these guys, like people get hired all of a sudden these days. And like, even in the NASCAR series, like I feel like you see people all of a sudden, I just hope that at the end of the day, in my own heart, selfishly, I would like, man, I hope that that did enough. I hope that was not enough, but I just hope it was like, hey, you know what? We'd like to give this guy another chance maybe in our world. You know what I mean? Like, because I think again, I have so much more to learn. But, dude, I had never done that before. And I'd love to see a stat of, like, maybe other open wheel guys on their first non-Daytona oval race. I would love to see how they did, like, just for pure curiosity. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, AJ Allmendinger took him a long time to be really, really successful in the Cup Series on ovals.
There's no
Montoya,
time limit.
It took him a while. You know what I mean? But, like, I don't have another race on my schedule. Yeah,
I just wanted to say too. I mean, like I think you've done more than enough, and I think you did more than enough this week. Like you get that opportunity. It's just every opportunity that you get, you just get out there, you do the best that you can, and I mean, you got that down pat. So I think at this point, moving forward, it's just taking that knowledge of what you've learned, and then just kind of trusting that, if you feel that that's something you need to be doing, it'll find its way to you. So
yeah, I mean, I obviously don't know where I'm going to go, but it was just something to where, like, working with the spotters too, like Nick, like, man, it was such a, like, I had sent a text, I think, to Sam or one of our crew members. It was like, I felt like I could really enjoy racing again. Like, I was like, that was just so, it kills me because if we finish 7th, where I think we should have finished 5th. I think we were a top 5. Like
you had a top 5 car.
If the race had gone all the way to the end on the green flag stint, I believe we would have finished 5th, for sure. And if not, 7th. But like when we took 2 tires at the end, which was a gamble. And again, I don't fault anyone for taking that gamble at all. I think that's fine.
That was your best gamble you could take.
Like because track position, we thought it was a big track position race for a long time, but taking 2 tires put us in a bit of a vulnerable spot. We had fallen to 11th, and then Ryan Sieg, he was a very fast forward the whole time. He had won a stage, I guess, and was very fast. Ryan Sieg shoved me out of the way at the end, like literally into 4, left rear, boom, gone. And so I fell from 11th to 14th, and you know what? 14th does not sound as good as 7th. And a top 10 day is like a big day in NASCAR. And I have to, and sadly, I have to live now with not finishing in the top 10. And I don't know if finishing in the top 10 creates another opportunity for me or not. This sport is just absolutely ruthless. I truly hope that for a purely selfish, I hope that I can get another shot at it because I believe that with no experience, I showed up and ran with the race winners. So I'm like, hey, come on. What do we got to do here? Like I have to find funding to race every weekend like everyone else, like a lot of people do. But there are also chances given to those that I think prove themselves. So I hope that maybe someday, and again, this is probably just because all I've done for the last couple of years is just claw my way into the seat. I don't want to claw anymore. I want to win. Like I want to be like, hey, this guy I think can do it. And maybe I haven't done enough yet. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that because all I can do is go out there every weekend and just give it everything I have. And I feel like that this race, every restart, every lap, I was putting everything I had into it. And I was having such a fun time doing it. And to run at the front all day after crashing in the wall from no fault of our own and running with a great team that was super supportive, spotters that were fantastic. I don't know. I couldn't wait to talk about it because I had such a fun time, and I thought we raced well, and so at the end of the day, we got moved out of the way in the final stint. I saw Parker Klingerman the next day after the race. He's like, "Yeah, dude, we don't really care anymore. At with 3 laps to go, you're gonna get wrecked." And I'm like, "Yep." I mean, I expected that. I'm so glad we ended up in the top 15 because that's a top 15 day.
Yeah.
And you know what's so funny too? I love telling people the real money angles of racing. So to give people perspective, and maybe I shouldn't really say this, but I like to be honest with people, right? Hey, finishing 14th at an Xfinity race, I get about $7,000 in prize money. That's great. That's huge for me. I made finishing in the top 10, I think we went over before, I made $22,000 in prize money, finishing in the top 10 at the Indy 500. So again, it's a great day for me because I'm like, hey, $7,000 is more than
some people have to work really hard to make that in a month.
That's a big day.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. In the NASCAR Xfinity series, I was like, hey, that's a great day for me. So it made me angry to probably like 7th probably would have been better. But yeah, cool to see that there's money paid out to drivers. Like I felt like it was a hard day's work, and I was like, I got some money for it. You know what I mean? So that was cool. But yeah, man, just I felt like I needed to say I couldn't wait to tell people about it because it's such a different experience. The way the cars move, the way the cars drive. Like I do believe though that my IndyCar experience 1,000% helped. I believe that a lot of those drivers will be better next year after what they learned this year. But for sure, the amount of laps that I had definitely helped. But what a fun experience. And honestly, to get to the end of that race and see how the finish was and to see that people thought that it was one of the best Xfinity races, cool to be a part of that. Like, what a fun experience to be a part of, right?
That's what I was texting you, man. I feel low-key guilty because like Saturday's usually like my big day. Like we have a big family day and I don't get to watch as much Xfinity racing. So to see that happen and go down, and I text you too, and I'm like, man, I haven't really got to watch much. And I'm like, everyone's always talking about it every week. Yeah. This is the best racing. And I'm just like, I'm going to watch replay.
I feel like a race car driver again. Like, man, we're going on the back straight, and you're 3 wide. People are all over the place. And I scared the crap out of my spotter, Greg, in turn 3. I had such a big run coming down the back straight. And you know what? I went 4 wide on the bottom. I wish I had some sort of onboard camera. I wish Greg could have like what his eyes saw, because when I heard in my radio, I go bottom of 4 into the inside of 3. Like we're talking for our IndyCar fans out there, you know where Pato tried to make that move on Marcus and he spun and crashed, or you saw that Ryan Hunter-Ray move to pass Elio to win at that in the grass in turn 3. That was me. Bottom of 4 wide. My spotter's like, oh, bottom 4. Oh, and I slid that sucker in there past all the cars. And I'm like, oh yeah, like that was sick. You know what I mean? Like it was it was fun racing because you could throw the car around a little bit at my favorite track in the world, IMS. And I know the grip levels there. And I know that if I could stick that thing, I just felt like a race car driver again. It was so fun. Bottom 4 wide into turn 3 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Just fun stuff, man.
The Supra is sick, too. The
I had a great time.
Supra is hands down. Just
shout out Toyota. Shout out Sam Hunt. Yeah, I mean, man, shout out Polka Dot, too. Like, our Polka Dot, we brought them to the world stage once again, ran at the front. I wish I could have kept my top 10 streak alive at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Almost kept the top 10 streak alive. But
you sent it for the blockchain.
I know this show has been longer probably than it could be, but man, just a really fun time. I tried to shout out to Riley Herbst too. The Fords were so fast; they were like they were killing it. But it was cool to get to experience. Man, I even got wrecked too. We had like Eric Almirola when he spun. I'm just trying to remember all the points of the race. Now there was so much stuff that happened. I got hit so hard from behind when Eric Almirola spun on one of the restarts that I had like this big whoop, whoop, and you see it on the broadcast, and I was like, hey, save of the week. I would like to say save of the week from Connor Daly, save of the week. That was it. Save the car somehow. But man, just so much fun, and I hope people enjoyed hearing about this. I like to talk about motorsport and kind of the real feelings of what went on, and just the newness of it all. Just dropped into the deep end with a lot of great drivers and a great series that our boss Dale Earnhardt Jr. got to run around with a lot of his cars. The '88 car got to run with with Mr. Kvapil. I think I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but got to race side by side with him a lot, and that was cool. But didn't want to wreck any of my owner's cars. That's for sure. I tried to give
a fun phone call.
Mr. Kvapil the space that he needed, because I didn't want to get criticized for anything there. I didn't want to do anything bad. I didn't want to get into a series that I'm new to and cause any commotion. I didn't want to be that guy. I just wanted to be a guy that was like, hey, that guy's maybe got that dog in it. You know what I mean? Maybe that was it.
Exactly.
Maybe that was it.
And you did. And you caused a lot of fans in the stands to cheer. So that was a good thing, too. So you did that as well.
So anyway, that's, I think we could probably talk more about it, but I hope people enjoy it. I hope people enjoyed the weekend. The Cup race, was an interesting one. Not surprised at all. Kyle Larson won the race. I text Kyle. I text Kyle before his qualifying run. I said, hey, so what do you think is harder, qualifying in the Cup car or the Indy car? He's like, honestly, the Indy car was easier to qualify than the Cup car. So I think Kyle Larson's experience for sure in the Indy car showed out. It's something that I truly believe when you have so much track time in the month of May, we get a feel for this track like no one else. And it was cool to see Kyle win, honestly. I was happy for Kyle. He's a great driver and really respect him doing the Indy 500 this year as well. So that's our NASCAR weekend summary. And you know what? This is an IndyCar show, but I'm going to tell you about what we did. So with that, let's get back to IndyCar racing. What do you think? Let's get back to Colton Herta.
We got Colton.
A great interview with Colton that I think you guys will enjoy. So with that, let's hand it over to the winner of the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Toronto, Colton Herta. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we knew this was going to happen sooner rather than later. It was only inevitable that the young American superstar, Santino Ferrucci's favorite driver, Gamebridge Honda specialist, Colton Herta is here, a winner. Colton, honestly, that was the first time ever where someone dominated you were leading every session, every single time cars were on track. There was no one else who was faster. So, I mean, that has to be a nice flex, right? That feels good. We're feeling like we're the best person ever in the Canadian lands.
It's awesome. It's nice to go into a long break like that. But I do have to correct you. I did not lead the first two groups in qualifying. So you can still do better.
Oh, so what was that stat they were trying to say? Like they were saying that you.
I guess technically I was the fastest in every group because my time in Q3 was the fastest out of all the groups. And you
were on pole. Yeah.
And I was on pole. So I guess technically I did lead every session, but I didn't lead all the groups of qualifying.
All right. Well, let's not, we'll throw those details into the weads. We don't really care.
Yeah,
we're going to go with most powerful man of all time in Canada. Went across the border, did the job. I feel like you've been like right on the edge, right? Like you've been close, you've been fast all year, you've been putting together some points, but also I've had a lot of bad luck. I mean, there's been a lot of situations where honestly, you look at them and I'm like, how it is pure. Now racing, people can say that all about luck, whatever it is, but there is luck involved in this sport. Like it is what it is. But you guys are feeling like, hey, we hit the brake, we're feeling good. Are we going for a championship now, or do you think we have enough points? Is this like you win every single race the rest of the season and we can win the championship maybe?
I mean, it's tough. Alex has done a great job this year. I think it's like 60 points. So it's a big margin, but it's not anything that we can't do. It's going to be difficult. You're going to need to be pretty perfect. But it's going to be some curveballs. Like who knows how good Ganassi's going to be at Milwaukee. Who knows how good Ganassi be at Nashville. I'm sure they're going to be rapid at Portland like they usually are. So there's a lot of unknowns going into the last part of the season.
So let's talk about the hybrid era now, right? So very different. Cars are different. I think people can tell. The Mid-Ohio race, let's be honest, not a great race. It was not a great race. Iowa, not a great race. But Toronto actually did not seem to be bad. Like it seemed like the racing was, I would say, maybe a hair better at Toronto. You think this is kind of because people are learning more about the hybrids? Is this just the nature of the track? What do you think?
I think it's the nature of the track. I don't think hybrid has made the racing better. I don't think it's made the racing worse. It's just something that keeps us busier in the car. And maybe it opens it up to having a few more mistakes on the driving side. Maybe you get runs off of that. But it's definitely busier inside the race car now than I think IndyCar drivers have ever been.
When you saw the when they said, "Hey, red flag," and when you saw a replay, were you able to like park in the pits and like see a replay on a big screen or anything, or did you have no idea what was going on? What did you hear about that?
I could see a little bit. I didn't really know how. It was far away. The TV was far away, so I don't know how. I saw Santino was upside down, and obviously it's a good thing that we're all okay there and everyone's happy about that. But I didn't understand how crazy the crash actually was until after the race, and I saw it. I don't know the last time I've seen an IndyCar jump like that. Usually you just break the front suspension. You don't go up in the air. So it was pretty gnarly.
It was full X Factor. It was full X Factor ramp.
We had the X Factor yard ramps. So Colton, the Toronto street race specifically, very difficult one. It could be hot, very short lap time. But obviously you guys at Andretti as a team dominated. Like you and Kyle were in a complete class of your own. Is that the work that this team has done specifically on street courses? Or is this something that it's finally everything's come together and you were able to dominate no matter what?
I think it's more everything's come together because we've had really solid street course cars for quite a long time now, maybe 3-4 years. And so, we've had the cars to win at a lot of the street course races. Just for one reason or another, it just hasn't happened. And so it's disappointing, but we've had good results this year. Kyle's had some good results. I've had some podiums on street courses and whatnot. But like you said, finally, just everything came together. We did an amazing race. It helps when you have a teammate up there like Kyle that you can base a strategy around, and you guys can help each other out on track a bit. And so it was an awesome one for us.
What is it about Kyle? You guys seem to work really well together. We obviously were consuming a couple adult beverages also after the race Sunday night, and Kyle's there. Boom, we got the boys. The boys are together. Is he been one of your strongest teammates that you've had in your time at Andretti Autosport, and you guys also work well together? Yeah, definitely. Maybe one of the, if not the strongest teammate that I've had in IndyCar. Just always pushing me, but not a selfish driver at all, which I think that's what really kind of makes you glad that he's on your side. Helps out with setup work a lot. On the racetrack, always a fair guy to race with. And it's not just because I'm his teammate. There's a lot of other guys that'll say the same thing. And the most important bit is he's rapid, and that's what you want. You want somebody to come in and have data to look at and put yourself up against one of the best guys in the series, and I think he does that. Chase, go ahead for Colton here.
Yeah, no, big congrats. I know I was just kind of following up on what Connor was saying, talking about, was it just, being good at the street courses or just an overtime buildup? But it seems like Andretti in the team just has this knack for Toronto. I mean, like Michael being a winner here for so many years, I think 7 times in the past from what I read. It just seems like there's like a secret sauce for Toronto, for Canada, you guys getting out there. So, I mean, is this obviously one of the races that the entire team has circled on the calendar every year?
Yeah, and it's such an important thing in IndyCar to be good on street courses because there's no testing that can replicate what you're doing. So everything that we learn from the dampers and whatnot and from setup is all done on race weekends. So it's so much. Can you still see me? Sorry, the lights went out. I
can't. It was little eclipse in the room.
No, I mean, it's so important to be strong on places like that because it helps you kind of compete or have that competitive edge for longer because it's hard to replicate what the car is doing on a street course when you go testing at, say, like a Sebring or something like that.
Absolutely. And I guess my second part to that is you had one of the nastiest burnouts of the year, maybe the only one. I think it was the only burnout I've seen all year. How important are big sellies for you in these situations?
It's awesome. I think.
Did you tune the brake bias? Did you go front brake bias a little bit for that donut? Because it looked like you planted the front end a little bit.
A little bit, but we're already so high on brake bias on street courses and stuff like that, so you don't really need to do more. But as soon as you can get those wheels spinning, they just get so hot so fast that you really barely need any throttle. You can hold the brake quite a bit. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to get some flack from Honda, I'm sure, at the next meeting that we have with them.
But it looked cool.
Worth it.
The engine was coming. The engine was coming out after that race. So, as far as my standpoint was, okay, I'll just destroy this thing.
That's what I figured. It's all about the engine coming out at the right time. Like that, you got to. Drivers know these things. Elite athletes know what's going on. Colton knew that. Hey, you know what? Daddy's going to have a celebration here. We're gonna let it eat because this engine's done for. It did its job. I love.
But they like to rebuild them and use some of the parts. Yes. Maybe in the block is usually the same block, but that one might have to get retired.
Hang it in the rafters. Yeah, hang it in the rafters. We'll
take it to the taxidermy. Put it on the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Make a table out of it. Do something.
Yeah, exactly. A nice kitchen table. Colton, I like to interview. Like, thankfully, you're a new guest for our. Like, we've interviewed a couple. Winners that have won already, Alex Palou, Scott Dixon, Will Power, we've talked to before, but I still haven't. I like to talk a little bit about the Indy 500, right? So your Indy 500 was looking great, and it was a tough end, of course, but I love to hear everyone's perspective on what they thought the racing was like. You were at the front, we were at the front together, kind of just going at it and saying like, hey, we're going to sit here and hang out, but it was also very difficult. You guys had a mistake that happened, so tell us a little bit about what led to that, how you thought the race was, and just kind of overall your Indy 500 thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the race was awesome as usual. I think the energy was amazing. We had a great car, and it's how the Indy 500 should be. You should be able to pass when you have a great car, and that was the case for us. We qualified 12th or 13th or so, but maybe 50, 60 laps in, we were already in the top 5. So we were able to make quick work of a lot of guys and get up there and then just cruise. I think a lot of people don't really understand it's such a fuel race in the beginning of it, that a lot of guys will get up to the front and they'll just cruise. Maybe some guys could go forward, but they don't want to yet. And so I was just cruising, not pushing. And then the rear just stepped out, and that's when we had that moment. And I guess for everybody that's watching, they're like, why'd you get out of the car? You need to stay in the car in that situation. Per IndyCar, if you hit the wall at an oval, you have to get out of the car. So unfortunately, I couldn't stay in because of how the rules are. And that's just to make sure that we don't have a concussion, because even a small hit like that, you hit the wrong angle and whatnot, you can still be concussed, you can still be hurt. So they want to make sure we're all right. But yeah, that was a weird one because, we're saving fuel, was not pushing in the corners, was just kind of hanging out. And I don't know.
You were overcutting that specific stint, because I believe I had already pitted, and then I came out and I was like, oh shoot, there's a crash. So like you were overcutting.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we were just cruising, and for whatever reason, we were looking at the data. The 6 previous laps, that was the slowest I'd been through turn 1. That was about as far away from Scott as I'd been in turn 1 too. So it wasn't like a weird up too close, up too fast, downforce just kind of checked out. It was a weird one. Yeah, it's still one that I don't think we fully understand why.
Yeah. But it goes to show how difficult that place is, right? Like you always have to be on your toes, even if you think you're saving fuel. I mean, the most elite of the elite can have these things happen. We see it all the time. And I think it's just how difficult Indy is. I mean, all drivers have had moments where you're just like, how in the world did that happen? And that's sadly, it's just such a difficult part of our sport. That's just what it is, I think.
Yeah.
I thought, did you think in general that the Chevy and Honda, did you think it was difficult to race with either manufacturer there? Or did you think once we got into race mode, hey, we kind of all equally had a shot at it there at the front? Or could you tell there were some people that were way better than others there?
I think it was difficult. I don't think it was necessarily an engine manufacturer thing more than if you had a good car, it kind of showed a little bit more than usual, I thought. But it was a crazy one. Everyone was so amped from having that delay and whatnot. Everyone just wanted to go. So when we got going and got green, it was insanity out there, and it was a quick one, and guys didn't know what the weather was doing, so everyone's in a frenzy to get up front and try to stay there. So I hate how it turned out for me, but it was definitely probably the most fun Indy 500 I had. And it was a cool one.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit about the drama that's been going on this year. I like Colton because Colton, I think, gives his thoughts, his honest thoughts. You think this year's been a little drama? Has there been some sharp words been dealt out between people, and you're not afraid to talk, right? I like that. The streets are wild when Colton is honest, and I respect that. Is this true? Are you not afraid to speak your mind?
No, I mean, I'll say what I feel.
Said the streets is watching and they talking too.
Yeah, I think most of the time it's just kind of, how I feel in the moment, and it's pretty honest and blunt. But also I think guys that have called each other out or have called me out have been right on some things too. So I'm fine taking some heat. I'm fine dishing it out.
I love it. My favorite part is the fact that, like, the internet goes to war for their guys, right? You see the comments and those people, because, like, look, I'm out here. I was trying to talk about the specific situation in Detroit as well, and I'm like out here just pointing out some stupidity, and I'm out here pointing out some honesty. But people will then come after me. They're like, "Oh, well, Colton hasn't finished in the top 10 as much as Santino, or whatever." I'm like, "Well, guess what? Guess who's up top? Guess who's got the winner interview?" That's Colton. Now, those people got awfully silent. So it's funny to see. I love the people that go to war for their guys. It's the best part about our sport is the fact that people go to war for their guys no matter what. And you know what? We need a little bit of this spice. Don't you agree? We need some of these people that are not afraid to talk about what's going on out there. I believe that.
It's 100%. It's what makes sport amazing is having rivalry or having fans that don't agree.
Perfect.
I love it, and I don't mind it. I don't mind fans being brutal or being honest or calling people out or booing people or anything. I think that's what makes American sports so great is, when Barry Bonds gets up to the plate, you're booing him, right? That's how it is in America.
Because he's probably about to knock it out.
That's just how it is. If a guy is winning a lot and is better, people are either going to love him or they're going to hate him. And that's just part of American sports. And I think that's what makes it so competitive and so compelling to watch is having fan bases like that will go to war for their driver or their team.
Exactly. Chase, go ahead. Get one more in here for Colton.
No, I was just going to say, you're exactly spot on. I mean, we talked to you earlier in the year on this show. So now having you back after so much time has passed, just kind of following in, where do you feel that the IndyCar is right now as far as in terms of the public and viewing that? We've seen some record numbers this year on some of the races. How are you feeling at the track? Are you feeling like there's a little bit more energy there? Can you kind of feel like this pressure building, getting ready to burst going into 2025 with the new deal? How's what's in the mind of Colton Herta with in the state of the sport of IndyCar?
I hope so. I mean, I think whatever the TV numbers are, they are, and whether they're up or down, it seems to be very marginal on if they're up or if they're down. It seems to be fairly similar. But I will say I have noticed so many more people at races just in the past 2 or 3 years, just kind of ramping back up. And so that's great to see. It's awesome. I love IndyCar racing so much. If I wasn't racing an IndyCar, I would be watching every single event, every single practice session. I just think it's so entertaining. But I'm just a motorsport fan too, right? It doesn't matter if it's IndyCar or Cup or IMSA or WEC or F1. I just like it all. So it's, I think it's hard not to love watching guys drive at the absolute limit of whatever they're driving and be pushing the limits and passing. And it's just cool. It's an awesome thing. And I enjoy it so much. And I'm very privileged to be able to do it.
Can you give people a quick, can we give people a quick Sunday night summary? We had NASCAR Cup Series driver Noah Gragson. We had IndyCar Series winner Colton Herta, Kyle Kirkwood, myself. Can you give us a quick summary from your perspective on celebrating with the boys? Is this something that I enjoyed the diversity of what we had going on? Xfinity racing, we had a Cup racing, we had lots of talk going on. I think that's what we need more often. Can you give us a fan summary of what's work safe, for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like anything. Like when drivers get together, they only talk about racing, right?
Yeah,
and that's what it was. We're talking about So how was it easy to pass in Cup this year compared to before?
Yeah.
Or, that Xfinity race was awesome. And we're talking about that for a bit, talking about IndyCar, and just what's going on in the racing world. So it's cool. It's fun to be able to talk to guys from different disciplines because their outlook on racing or how they approach it is so different depending on what discipline of racing you're from. So it was super cool. It was cool to get to talk and pick the brains. It's cool to see Connor and talk to him about the Xfinity and his just, I guess, crazy week that you had.
Me, thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Great to see you guys. Yeah.
Yes, and so it was fun.
And Deepu, it was a good great night. To see Deepu. Deepu, obviously, he's a great friend of the show. Yeah, the sheriff of Indy. Colton, appreciate you. I know you have to get back to the simulator. Literally, Colton is taking a break from his simulator life. Quick, Colton, to Formula One update. Is there any progress there? Have we got a super license yet or no?
No super license. Check back next week.
Okay. Goodness gracious, Colton Herta is still not allowed to have a super license. What a wild world. They're giving this 17-year-old kid a super license, but not Colton Herta. Let's grab your pitchforks. We're going to the FIA. All right, thanks. Colton Herta, thank you so much, man. The Gamebridge wagon looked great up there. Appreciate you for doing this, fitting us in your schedule. And I do hope that with our own, it's crazy. We only have 5 races left. That's absurd. But I'm sure we will end up probably talking to you again. So Colton Herta, thank you so much, my friend. We appreciate you.
Awesome. Good chatting with you guys.
Well, folks, we appreciate Colton. I mean, Colton is always good to talk to. He's at the simulator right now. I would love to have talked to him maybe a little bit more, but hey, we got work to do. So good to chat with Colton. Love his honesty. Love his little chatter about the Indy 500. He's an American superstar. Chase, what do you think?
That's him. He's ready to rock out anytime. He's ready to do donuts. Yep. He's ready to just tear it down with the boys.
Yeah, we had a great celebration with him on Sunday night. It's kind of funny. He got on the PJ, back to Indianapolis after the Toronto race. Him and Kyle Kirkwood showed up. Me and Noah Gregson. Good to see Noah Gregson. Enjoyed hanging with him. Kind of racing boys talk night. It was just so funny. Like, when you get a couple of boys together, and like my girlfriend was there, his girlfriend was there, like my buddy Steven and Deepu were there, but like all of a sudden the race car drivers are just talking racing, like just the boys talking about, like, we're talking about air movement on the car, like he was talking about the cup car, how the cup race went. I'm trying to talk about Xfinity. Like, it was just such a funny time with the boys, and having a couple cocktails just with the boys at the bar, at Coach's Tavern. The boys are just having a nice time. So
that's a good time.
It was just a good evening, I would say. A great evening. So with that, let's finish off the show. I am finally going to get back to time in Ohio here with my girlfriend and probably go do fun things. This has been a long show. Appreciate her letting me do this in her basement. But let's go to the Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week.
Greatest event of its kind that's ever been run on.
Let's meet the drivers. Who will make up the field?
This week on our favorite segment, our most successful segment of all time, we went to the 1932 Indianapolis 500. The 1932 Indianapolis 500, honestly, the winner of this race could be a random Indy 500 Driver of the Week, because I have not heard this name before. So I'm going to save that one, maybe for later. I'm going to save that one. But for now, I'm going to go with the 6th place finisher. The 6th place finisher in the 1932 Indianapolis 500 is Zeke Meyer. Meyer, not Zeke Elliott, not the running back for the Dallas Cowboys.
Maybe not a crop top guy.
Not a crop top guy, Zeke Meyer. Herbert Ernest Zeke Meyer, born in 1891. Not, the funny thing is, on Wikipedia, not related to fellow racer Louis Meyer. We obviously know the name Louis Meyer. A Rhode Island man, Cranston, Rhode Island, was in 4 Indianapolis 500. It looks like 1930, 32, 33, and 36. But in 1932, finished 6th. Great effort from Zeke Meyer. I do not see much information about Zeke, honestly. Just Zeke Meyer. That's it.
He was Zeke. He was the only person
just
in
a,
that
just
in
a guy
that time
named Zeke.
He
Yeah,
was
not a
probably
lot
the
of
first
Zekes
Zeke.
back then, I bet. Yeah.
Maybe the first Zeke.
Yeah.
No, Ezekiel from the Bible, but no
That's
one
true.
called him
Yeah.
Zeke, you know?
Yeah.
So I
So,
would
yeah, there
say
you
that he
go.
was the first Zeke.
There you go. Maybe I would like to, if you know how many Zekes have been in the Indy 500, please let us know. Maybe that's a fun fact. I'd like to know how many Zekes were the Indianapolis 500.
You're like a nice poster.
Yeah. So with that, we'll come to the end of the show here. We got a couple weeks off. So motor racing in general, we have the Olympics coming up. Very excited about the Olympics. I love the Olympics. I can't wait to watch.
What's your favorite?
A great time. Oh man, I like the weird stuff, dude. Give me like the 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, like I don't know, the shooting competitions, like they're like the riflemen or like the bow and arrow stuff, like the archery.
A little bit of archery.
Like give me some random stuff where like
Big shot put guy.
Oh yeah, it's like shot put's kind of wild too. Like something like that. Like I just like to get off the beaten path. Like let me watch the surfing, which apparently the surfing is happening actually in Tahiti. I just saw Joe Pompliano, who's been on our show before. He was talking about the fact that Tahiti is apparently like a French colony or something like that, and so they're having the surfing competition in Tahiti, which looks like the coolest thing ever. So Olympic surfing is back. Guess what? Olympic breakdancing is happening this year. I want to watch that. Dude, there's Olympic breakdancing. So that's going to be sick.
Dude, I think I'm going to have to watch the Olympics.
Dude, I love the Olympics. I will watch every day. Like, sign me up. Every NBC property possible, I will be watching on it. That's going to be sick. But I think next week, again, we talked about having maybe Teddy Chairs on, Theo Porcher. I'd like to have him on the show. Let's maybe get adventurous. Suggest a guest. Let's do a suggest a guest segment. Let us know who you think we should talk to. I'll try to get some information. Maybe we can have a Formula One driver on. Who knows? Maybe I'll reach out to the realm of F1. Maybe we can have Brad Pitt on. Brad Pitt, he's a Formula One driver. Who knows? Probably not. I would say there's a 99.999/1,000,000% chance that's never going to happen. But we'll see. So
you never know.
Knows? You never know.
But Danny Rick's in a new. He's in a new movie with Josh Allen now. I saw that. Yep. I don't know if you saw that online.
I think it's just a Beats commercial, but who knows? Yeah,
just a Beats commercial, kind of a movie commercial for Beats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Danny Rick did text me last week. We were talking about bourbon, so I still would love to have Daniel Ricciardo on this show. We'll see. But yeah, until then, we appreciate you guys listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the show. It was a deep dive. Got emotional. I just want to be a race car driver. Honestly, it's killing me that I can't do more racing. And maybe my year in IndyCar is not done yet. Who knows? We'll see. There could be more IndyCar races on the horizon. We never know. This life is a crazy one. And we definitely have 2 truck races on the schedule. So until then, we'll talk to you next week on Speed Street. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast channels, give us a like, leave us some ratings, reviews, whatever the heck you want to do. Just support the show. We'll see you guys next week. Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.